Welcome to Practical Business Technology, where we keep you in the know about technology's impact on business. Today's show is sponsored by the Maricopa County Bar Association, and our host is Dave Kinsey, author and owner of Total Networks. Welcome to our show. I'm here with Dave Kinsey to ask him about multi-factor authentication.
Great, thanks for having me here.
Hi, Dave. So explain what two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication means.
Sure. When you log onto a computer, you're used to using your username and password. So that password, that's a single factor that's used to authenticate you. That's not really enough. Passwords are not a very good factor at that because passwords can be guessed. Sometimes people might reuse a password on a site, say a website that gets compromised, and so then they would be able to use that password on other sites. So the idea of having a second factor, or perhaps three factors, or more, multi-factors, to authenticate you is a really good idea. So the idea is different types of factors can be something you know, like a password or passphrase, something you have, like your mobile phone, or something you are. And for there, we're really kind of talking about biometrics, which, like your fingerprint or voice print identification or retina scanner, things like that. That would be those would be different factors.
So you talked about passwords can be hacked, but what if my password's like 20 characters long?
That's good.
So I don't need multi-factor if I have a really complex password?
Well, it's good. Longer passwords are important. Basically, 20-character password, and 20-character password is can sound daunting to people, but it actually, if you use a phrase, multiple words that you might use together that you type, that can be very strong, because the way that computers do what's called brute force attempts to try to break into your account involves guessing, and so the longer your password is, the harder it is to guess it, because it has to try more combinations of things. So. But even with a strong password, there's a lot of ways that things could be compromised. Say if you're doing good things and you have a password that's long and you don't reuse it, so that's two good things. It still can be compromised because, say some sort of keylogger might capture your information. You might go to, say, a website that you think is the website you want to log into, but it's actually something illegitimate, and you enter in your password. Well, then your password's been compromised. So there's a whole number of ways of which even a strong password can be compromised. So having multiple ways to authenticate you is important. That's kind of a general theme with security, is layers. So there's no such thing as perfect security, but stronger security generally means really thinking things through and having multiple layers to have to get through.
Okay, that's good. So more and more we're seeing cloud applications like Office 365, or you might be using Google Gmail. Those are things that I'm assuming you can get to those sites from no matter where you are. Would those be more important to have two-factor in place? Two factors really important for any account you care about, but one of the most important accounts to protect would be an account where you have email. And there's a number of reasons for that. Number one, there's the very obvious thing where, say, if somebody hacks into your, say, Office 365 and can now send mail as you, that's not cool. Now, people can fool systems to pretend they're sending mail as from you, but if they actually really are sending mail as from you, that can cause a lot of problems. But even more so,
whenever you need to do things like reset your password, how do systems do that?
Well, they email you.
Yeah, exactly. They email you. They email you a reset password link. So if somebody has compromised your inbox, compromised your email, they can go and do password resets on accounts and get that email into their mailbox, because now that mailbox is, your mailbox becomes their mailbox.
But if you had two-factor in place,
that would protect it a lot better.
That would protect it better, because unless they also stole your eyeball or your fingerprint.
I think probably more common might be your phone. So like say, you want to picture, I don't want to, Russia's really easy to pick on, right? So, but it's like the quote unquote Russian hacker. Say there's somebody out there in the internet, out there in, somewhere not where you are. If your password was password, say your password 123, really bad password, but you have two-factor authentication where they need to have your phone, to get the code. Even though your password is terrible, you're probably not going to get hacked. Now, you want to have both strong password. Don't say, well, now I'll say all my passwords are password and I'm going to turn two-factor on everything. Once again, it's layers. But I would argue that having the second layer, say having your phone or having some other biometrics or whatever, is going to be stronger than a password.
Yeah. Well, so is there that's great. So if we get robbed and they stole my phone. Yeah,
then, well, you hopefully have at least
hopefully I have protection on
your phone. So and there's once again multiple layers and multiple ways to protect your phone. Every phone should have a PIN on it, and then you probably have like a fingerprint where you can can use that for convenient access. Typically, it requires the PIN when you restart the phone at the very least. So once again, it's about layers, and and it's about risk management. Your most, I'd say your highest risk. You look at what's the likelihood of something happening, and what would the damage be if it did. I think in terms of likelihood of attack would be things from the internet, because once again that could be automated. I say the Russian hacker, but the Russian hacker isn't actually personally trying to get you. He'll develop, or the organization will develop software that will try to get you, and will run this over the internet, because the computers on the internet, they don't sleep, they don't get tired, they can run forever trying to brute force things. And so if you can protect internet accounts like your email with two-factor authentication, it's a heck of a lot stronger. Of course, you want to be careful with where you lay down your phone as well, but those are both important.
Yeah. So you talked about different means of two-factor, like it could be your phone. What do you mean by your phone? Are you talking about like a text message?
That's one way. It could be a text message. Text messages is one of the weaker approaches. It's still pretty strong. I mean, being able to having someone be able to text message you. There are ways that can be spoofed, or there's a thing called smishing. Phishing is what happens when somebody emails you and tries to get you to do something. Well, if somebody sends you an SMS that tries to get you through, that's been called smishing. But the more secure approaches are using things like an app on the phone, or there's things like physical keys, like YubiKeys and other things that you might have on your keychain that would be a USB key. But I'd say text message on your phone is easy, common, and works pretty well. Taking it to the next step with an actual app on the phone makes it stronger.
Okay. Are there any that you like? Are these free, or are there
generally
paid
they're free
versions?
There's both. There's free ones and there's paid ones. A very common one would be Google Authenticator. That's probably the most common one out there. A lot of people use that. There's also Microsoft's Authenticator. Both of those are free, that you can download and get from your App Store, the Play Store, things like that.
Okay. So if I'm a business, is there a way for me to keep track of whether my employees have two-factor set up?
For business accounts, absolutely. You can do things like say if you're using Office 365 or Google G Suite. In either one of those, you can require two-factor to log in. And so, and you should. As a business owner, if you care about your data, if you're a business that doesn't care, which I can't imagine, every business needs to care about this stuff. So every business should have two-factor authentication required for their employees. And it can sound challenging or, too difficult for some people. It's really not. It's super easy. Say for Microsoft Office 365, for example, you would set up the password. You require two-factor, and then you'd need to use that second factor like the very first time you set up a new PC, or the very first time you set up a new phone. You don't need to go through a two-factor process necessarily every time. You may get asked during different events, occasionally for the two-factor, but this is not something that's going to change the way you live. What will change the way you live is if a hacker comes and hacks you, your life is going to get turned upside down for a while, and it's just not a risk that's worth taking. So two-factor is a heck of a lot easier than some people think it is.
Well, and unfortunately, we hear about hacking and breaches in the news, I feel like, literally every week.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's very common. And businesses of any size can be breached.
Sure.
So
yeah, exactly. Well, it's more common actually for small business to be breached because there's more of them. So, but there's there's really no excuse to not have two-factor authentication for any account you care about. A lot of people, social media might be important to them. So your Facebook, your Twitter, whatnot, turn two-factor on. It's not hard. It's quite simple. And then for your business accounts, certainly, and for your email, for your you say you have a personal Gmail, requiring two-factor for that. And so, might there be extra steps? Okay, so say you set on two-factor, say for Gmail, and you access it via the web. All right, well, you're going to get prompted, for it. But it's so easy. You have your phone in your hand anyway. If you can't afford a couple seconds every now and then, you're just not treating security seriously.
Well, and things like you said, if it's on your computer that you use every day, you don't have to put that two-factor in to get into your Gmail or your Office 365 every time.
When you set it up the first time on a new PC, yeah.
But there might be some applications where you have to every
Yeah,
time.
there's going to be. I'm not going to say this. I don't want to make a blanket statement that you'll only have to do this once, but it is not going to. It's not going to cramp your style. This is something you just need to do.
So we talked about SMS messages being one way, but it's maybe not the most strong.
Yeah,
and then the
there's better ways.
app on your phone is better.
Yep.
But then tell me about these biometric ones.
Yeah, well, biometrics is an interesting topic because really it comes down to the quality of the sensors. One thing, iPhone was the first phone really that I'm aware of that had, say, face recognition, face unlock. That's a biometric. It had, they took the time and they had sensors that would actually look at your face. I think it's got infrared sensors. It's got multiple sensors from different angles on the phone. It makes sure that this is like really you. At one point in time, for a very brief time, I think, on some Android phones, and I don't believe this is enabled on any phones currently, I could be wrong, they actually had it where it was a simple picture. So the idea is if I have take a picture, if I had a picture of you and I hold it up in front of the phone, which is not how hard is it to get a picture, that, hey, I unlocked the phone. I don't know, I've never actually tried it, but that would be, kind of embarrassing. And I know, for example, like the new face unlock is actually coming to the Pixel 4, which is released, well, actually, by anyone listening to this, it should be released, because I think it's released like just about today. So that's something we're going to see is, on devices, stronger sensors. I think you're going to see biometrics leveraged more and more, and it's going to be from the quality of the sensors. It's just going to be so much stronger authentication than a password. Passwords may eventually go away. There are people that would love to see passwords go away. I'm one of them. So I do think passwords are becoming passé. They're still required today.
Fingerprints, another one, right?
Oh, fingerprints. Oh, certainly. Fingerprint is the most obvious one. I guess I didn't even say anything about that because everybody, and that's why, once again, like having, once again, because of the quality issue, the quality of the sensors for fingerprints are very good on just about every phone. That's really what I would use for biometrics. I understand though that the facial biometrics are supposed to be, at least like say on iPhone, is supposed to be just as good, if not better, than the fingerprint, and I assume it probably will be on the Pixel 4 where it's coming out. And once again, there's no excuse not to have two-factor, not to have a pin on your phone when you can unlock it using biometrics, but just by picking it up. Your finger has to actually touch the phone. So all you need to do is make sure you put it in the right place, so that it gets picked up by the sensor. So there's no excuse.
So any closing thoughts?
Yes. One of the things I talked about was not reusing passwords. And you might ask yourself, well, I'm a mere mortal. How can I possibly remember a different password for every site? And the answer is, that mortals can't do that. So you want to be able to use a password manager to remember your different passwords at different sites. And that begs the question that, say, if you have a password manager, like say LastPass is a popular one. I don't want to name all of them. That's just one of the more popular ones. Two-factor enable that one there. You do not want to have that hacked, or all your passwords would be hacked. So that's a perfect example of where you would use it, say a good password manager, and then have best practice where you're actually using two-factor to secure that.
Well, super. Thank you, Dave.
Well, thanks for having me.